Hello, everybody. My name is Kenzie Woodbridge. My pronouns are they and them. I'm talking about this topic, which is near and dear to my heart, which is the unsupportable futility of trying harder. And trying harder for me means something very specific, which is it is a phenomenon that happens in the context of scarcity. There's not enough of something, so we need to compensate for that. It's fundamentally a problem of substitution. Specifically substitution of two things that are not the same, and it can take many, many forms. So for example, we don't have enough time before the deadline. So instead we substitute the intensity of effort, or we ask people to do work overtime, or we reduce the quality or the feature set of what we're doing, and we sort of accumulate a bit of stuff we have to fix later. Another example, there's not enough money in the budget. Right? So if there's not enough money, and that means there's not enough supplies of whatever, might not be enough people, etc. So again, we substitute intensity of effort, unpaid overtime, which, I mean, is really, you're asking your workers to have the goodwill to volunteer their personal time to the project. And again, reduction in quality, technical debt, etc. There's not enough workers. So again, we need people to work really hard. We need them to put in overtime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's other kinds of substitutions as well, where like we don't have enough developer time to do all the things, make sure things are as accessible as they need to be, or as usable as they need to be, or as, so-called intuitive, which is a word I hate, as they should be. So instead we're like, oh, well, we'll put it in the documentation. We'll tell them they have to do this weird thing to get to the thing that they need to do, etc. We'll train them or what have you, or, they're going to call into support. So you're substituting support worker time for developer time. And realistically, what I'm substituting here is user time, right? Which, do we even have the right to demand that of people, I guess? Or we said we don't have enough specialized expertise in some kind of thing, so we substitute in unskilled effort and all of the challenges that go along with that. So what else is it? Well, I mean, it's sometimes an example of creative problem solving. Sometimes there isn't enough for all sorts of reasons, right? It's sometimes unavoidable. It's sometimes useful and necessary over the short term, but it's also unsustainable in a long-term strategy, because when you ask people to just try harder and try harder and try harder for a long time, that's one of those things that can lead to burnout. It can lead to people leaving your organization, finding other jobs that are going to let them have a life outside of work, that are going to be in some fashion where they don't have to fight so many little battles, all that kind of thing. Well, what can you do about it? Organizationally, if there's not enough money in the budget, okay, well, you can find those sorts of ways to look at reducing budgetary waste and better prioritizing the money that you do have. So rather than letting one or two people make decisions from their little bailiwick, realistically looking across the whole organization to identify those critical needs, that kind of thing. If you don't have enough money to pay workers as much as you would ideally like to pay them, there's other ways of paying people, right? Letting them have more flexibility in their work hours, etc. But in particular, treating them better, honoring the agreements you already have, focusing on non-monetary worker retention strategies, because if you don't have enough workers, you don't have enough workers to train more workers. You don't have enough workers to onboard people, etc. So you want to retain the ones you have, which can be a lot of the stuff like managing conflict, effectively, and that kind of thing. All of this stuff is very important. Doesn't fully, deal with all of those problems, but it's one of those things. Like individually, be alert for those substitutions, advocate for alternatives, all this stuff. This is a much longer talk normally, but tried to shorten it just for today. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it.